good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. My name is Dr. Karen Reyes, and I'm the Senior Program Manager at ATscale. And it is a real pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on ATscale and ILO Policy Brief on Assistive Technology and Employment. As you are joining, please just join the chat and sharing from where are you joining us today. And now, before we dive into today's rich agenda, just a quick housekeeping notes to help you get the most out of the session. This webinar will be run for 75 minutes, and then at 1:15 p.m. Central European Time. During the session, if you're not speaking, kindly keep your microphone muted to avoid any background noises. The webinar is being live translated into international sign language, Spanish, French, and English. Please click on the interpretation at the bottom of your Zoom screen to access them. Closed caption is also available in Spanish, French, and English, and please click on the links that are being shared on the chat. The session, as it's being recorded and will be shared publicly after the event. Please submit any of your questions in the Q&A section. Our team is monitoring them and we'll have time to respond them during the Q&A session. Use the chat for general comments, thoughts, and reactions. We'd love to hear your thoughts during the session. Now, I'll give you the sense of what we have ahead. We'll begin with opening remarks from Stefan Trommel, Senior Disability Specialist at the International Labour Organization, ILO, and Dr. Satish Mishra, Head of Global Programs at ATscale, the Global Partnership for Assistive Technology. Then you'll hear the key findings from the policy brief, explore real case scenarios, and engage with the dynamic panel discussion moderated by Satish. We'll close with Q&A and final reflections. We're excited for all of you to be in here. And I hope that today it's both insightful and inspiring. So let's get started. And Stefan, over to you for opening remarks.
Thank you, Karen. As Karen mentioned, I'm the Senior Disability Specialist in the International Labour Organization. It's not a secret that the employment rates of persons with disabilities are well behind those of persons without disabilities, normally 30–40% lower rates. And we're particularly concerned about the fact that youth with disabilities have twice a high rate of being neither in education, employment, or training. And in developing country context, people with disabilities are overrepresented in the population that works in the informal economy. There are many causes for this exclusion or underrepresentation in the labor market, but especially in the context of low and middle income countries, we think that the availability or the lack of availability of assistive technologies is definitely one of those reasons. No? And it's both assistive technology that is a precondition for employment, AT that is used outside employment, but also is used for employment. But then, of course, is also the, let's say, more employment-specific assistive technologies, which are usually provided or should be provided by companies as a form of reasonable accommodation. But then, when you bring in the informal economy context, that is not the current reality. So we were very excited when we were approached by ATscale to explore this issue, and we're happy today to co-launch this policy brief that unpacks this important issue in a much clearer way and hopefully provides a way forward. So back to you, Karen, and again, thanks to ATscale for this excellent collaboration.
Thank you, Stefana. Now we will hear opening remarks from Dr. Satish.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Stefan, for those opening remarks. A warm welcome to all of you. It's a real pleasure to have all of you who have joined us today. We are very excited to have this co-host this discussion today in collaboration and partnership with ILO, International Labour Organization. Before I go further, taking a step back on why are we doing these policy brief. ATscale strategy, which was launched in December 2024, a key component of that strategy is to work in collaboration with partners on global enablers, working on different global public goods. These global enablers could be tools, could be knowledge products, could be guidance documents, could be steps for creating a healthier market. And the core function of those global enablers is to support all countries, low, middle, as well as high income countries in many instances, so that the countries can have up-to-date knowledge, guidance, as well as have the information and tools that are needed to strengthen delivery of quality assistive technology services, not only at the country level, but also many times at inter-country level. As part of that global enabler function work in collaboration with different partners, that's how we approached ILO to work on this challenge together and take a deep dive and to have a better understanding of AT and employment. And that's what today's policy brief and the webinar will focus on. We have 4 other policy briefs work which is happening on. There is one which we are working with UNICEF on assistive technology and employment. We are also working on assistive technology and gender with UN Women. We are also working on assistive technology and climate change with UNDRR, as well as an policy brief with focus on financing assistive technology, financing for assistive technology, which is a crucial issue. Today's webinar will focus on the recently published policy brief of AT and employment. In today's webinar in today's discussion, in principle, we all have always agreed the importance of the enabling function of assistive product in the life of an individual. And how does it contribute to assist that individual to go to work or to go to school and be an equal member of the society and participate in the society? But how does it work? How can we ensure that it happens, that assistive product can support in employment? This is what we are going to discuss today in the next 1 hour, 15 minutes. We'll also touch on some of the barriers which we face with regards to employment, both from the employer perspective as well as the user perspective, and what are the different solutions with those barriers to address them. The policy brief, which we'll discuss in a moment, will also provide practical recommendations for different sectors on scaling up access to assistive technology in the employment sector. Moving from evidence to action, we are very much hopeful that the recommendations stemming out from the policy brief, we can then take it to the countries, to ATscale partner countries, and support the countries in implementation of those recommendations. And we look forward for support of all the partners. Many of you are here today present in the webinar to ensure that AT contributes in scaling up in the employment sector. I want to take a moment to really thank and recognize the efforts of ILO, International Labour Organization, especially Stefan and Melissa, for their hard work and support in development of this policy brief. And we'll also like to thank all the speakers we will listen in a moment, who brings different perspectives coming from across the globe on AT, assistive technology and employment. So wishing you all a very great session today. And without taking further time, let me invite Melissa Miller from ILO to present the policy brief to all of us. Over to you, Melissa. Melissa, I can't hear you, and maybe I know we could hear you.
Apologies, I'm here. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, Melissa. Over to
Okay,
you.
great. Okay, so as we know, this policy brief is a joint initiative by the ILO and ATscale to enhance, to highlight the importance of assistive technology in enhancing employment opportunities for persons with disabilities and other AT users in low and middle income countries. So the brief aims to improve understanding of the barriers that AT users and also employers themselves face in accessing AT for employment purposes, as well as highlight the impact of AT on accessibility, performance, and career advancement. So towards the end of this presentation, I'll be talking about some evidence-based policy recommendations that we have developed for a range of stakeholders, all of whom have a vital role to play in strengthening the AT ecosystem for employment. So we know that globally, over 1 billion people with disabilities, there are over 1 billion people live with disabilities, and approximately 80% of those people reside in low and middle income countries. However, only 5 to 15% of those within LMICs are able to access the appropriate AT that they require. And that's in contrast to 90% in higher income countries. So this disparity, along with social, institutional, and other environmental barriers, significantly reduces the chances of persons with disabilities accessing decent work opportunities, particularly within LMICs, where many of those people will work within the informal sector, and there are less likely to be opportunities to access reasonable accommodations. So the ILO and ATscale recognise the transformative potential of AT to act as an enabler to overcome some of these barriers and also to foster more inclusive workplaces. So how does AT act as an enabler for accessing employment? It plays a foundational role in making workplaces more accessible in the first place. And when we talk about access, we refer to physical access, we refer to digital access, and we also refer to access to tasks and training opportunities that are important for continuing professional development. It can enable people to perform job tasks that would otherwise be difficult or impossible without AT, and support mutually effective communication and collaboration across and beyond the workforce. It can support navigation to the workplace itself and also within the work environment, and increase employability by enhancing the range of opportunities and career choices that persons with disabilities and other AT users have, which is currently restricted. It can also prevent premature workforce exit, so helping people remain within the workforce for longer periods of time, which is particularly important in contexts where there are a lack of social protection measures such as pensions in place. So AT is an umbrella term for assistive products and their related systems and services. It can include physical products such as prostheses, wheelchairs, spectacles and hearing aids, digital tools such as software and apps that can support planning and communication at work, and also environmental adaptations such as ramps, hoists and grab rails. We've provided here a non-exhaustive list of AT that is frequently used within employment contexts. So you'll see software, examples of software, hardware, furniture and mobility aids, which I won't go through all of them, but within workplaces, it's important to note that AT may also include tools and equipment that are adapted to enable a person to perform a specific task, whether that be in an office environment, a factory, an agricultural setting, or any other workplace. And the type of AT required will vary across different employment contexts and will be tailored to meet the needs of the AT user, the specific work task, and the work environment. It isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, and it must be personalised, context-specific, and importantly, aligned with the preferences of the user. So the benefits of AT across the life course have a cascading effect that extends beyond the AT user to their family and local community, their employer or workplace, and society at large. We've already spoken about how AT increases access to employment and economic opportunities. It can also promote independence and social inclusion. For employers, there's evidence of it increasing productivity and reducing absenteeism and supporting staff retention so that staff can continue to remain in their roles as their needs change. At a broader societal level, it has a multiplier effect of increased income and productivity on the national economy. And research has shown that investment in 4 AT products, so that includes wheelchairs, hearing aids, glasses, and prostheses, can produce a return on investment of 9-to-1. So we've heard about all of the benefits of AT, but what are the barriers that continue to limit access to assistive technology for AT users and for employers, and that continue to perpetuate socioeconomic inequalities? So across the board, there's a lack of awareness of what AT exists. AT users themselves, employers and government are often not aware of what AT is available or its potential benefits to improve employment outcomes. In terms of affordability, high costs are often driven by importation costs, taxes, and the cost of distribution, making it unaffordable for many people in low and middle income countries. And that is more pronounced in rural areas where people also have to factor in the cost of getting to a city in order to be able to access any AT. There's limited digital access, and that covers access to digital training, learning digital skills, and also website accessibility. Social prejudices and stigma can deter individuals from using AT. A recent survey of AT users found stigma to be a large barrier to using it within the workplace. And there's also inequity in access. There's a gap between persons with disabilities who have been able to access an education and are more likely to land jobs in companies where reasonable accommodations are in place to facilitate access to AT, and those working in the informal sector who are more likely to have unmet AT needs. At an employer level, there's often a lack of training and knowledge and awareness, as we've mentioned, about how to facilitate access to AT for staff and also what is available. Financial constraints are frequently cited, particularly between small and medium-sized enterprises. And there's a lack of inclusive hiring practices in place that encourage people to disclose their AT needs from the start. Cumbersome procurement processes, problems with the availability and supply chain issues can also hinder the process. And concerns around compliance, where employers may be hesitant to introduce new AT software due to worries around ICT security and data protection requirements. New software integration requires compliance checks, which are frequently cited as being costly. At a broader ecosystem, there is often a lack of political will. While policies do exist on reasonable accommodations, they are not always well enforced. And AT isn't always cited as a workplace adjustment. There are inconsistent standards around the production of AT, which means that some people are left with inappropriate or low quality products, which results in the abandonment of AT. And there's a lack of maintenance and repair services and expertise, which also contributes to the abandonment of assistive technology. There seems to be a limited research and data around the importance of AT and its impact on employment outcomes, with data frequently siloed to the health sector. So central to this policy brief is the understanding that better access to assistive technology cannot be achieved by AT suppliers and employers alone. It requires the foundations of a robust ecosystem. And at the center of this, we have the AT user. In order for them to access and use the AT they require to work, we need an enabling workplace with clear, reasonable accommodations processes in place. Companies that we interviewed cited promising practices, which includes a single entry point for workplace adjustment services, with a catalogue of items that have been checked for compliance with internal systems, and streamlined processes that can accelerate AT requests. There needs to be digital and environmental accessibility across the workplace and systems in place to facilitate access to AT in a timely manner. A disability-confident work culture where people feel valued and supported and efforts are made to remove barriers to full participation. And also where AT users feel that they can disclose AT needs without fear of discrimination. It is important to have accountability mechanisms, so opportunities to provide feedback and to monitor cost, AT type and turnaround time. And leadership buy-in is of huge importance so that there's oversight across the organisation of how these systems are being implemented. In terms of financing mechanisms, it's important that systems are in place that recognise that the additional costs should not fall on persons with disabilities who already face heightened cost of living. We will hear during the panel discussion from Access to Work in Nigeria about their recently launched programme to try and mitigate some of these costs for both employers and for individuals. AT policies need to be translated into practice and regulated. And research and data on AT beyond the health sector that demonstrates how AT can improve outcomes needs to be collected and shared to provide an evidence base for policy making. It's important that AT is incorporated into education programs at a younger age so people grow up using AT, and that it can be used in vocational colleges to demonstrate the potential to enhance work opportunities.
I need to call her. She goes through.
As we see that AT is a growing market, there are opportunities for AT users to be engaged in AT production, design, servicing and retail, not just as recipients of AT, but as active participants within this process and also within the AT job market itself. Global initiatives are working to strengthen AT ecosystems and working with governments to address market barriers and advocate for policy improvements, as well as documenting effective strategies to improve AT access. And there's also a number of organisations working to strengthen local AT ecosystems and support innovations to scale impactful AT solutions for suppliers and services. As we've already mentioned, the awareness is incredibly important. A range of stakeholders need to be aware of what exists and of its potential to challenge some of the barriers that persons with disabilities face in accessing employment. So within this ecosystem, we've identified a number of stakeholders that all have their own role to play within this process. Governments implement policies and regulate to ensure access for AT employment, for access with AT for employment, whilst employers are responsible for implementing inclusive workplace adjustments and hiring practices. AT suppliers develop, provide and distribute assistive technologies, whilst industry associations can promote accessibility standards and build collaborations across the different sectors and share best practices. Organisations of persons with disabilities strongly advocate currently for the use of AT, and they can raise awareness amongst their members on their rights to access AT within these different sectors. Development partners also have a role to play within their own livelihood programmes in terms of advocating and supporting access to AT, and also funding and supporting initiatives that promote the provision of AT. Within the policy brief itself, you'll find a number of recommendations for each of these stakeholders that I've just mentioned. I will cover briefly a few of these key recommendations, which have a focus on developing policy frameworks that promote the role of AT in reasonable workplace accommodations, and that are accompanied, very importantly, by effective financing mechanisms. There's a need to support local AT innovation and production, whilst also building capacities of a workforce that can meet the need for local AT servicing and maintenance to reduce the risk of AT being abandoned or used inappropriately. It's important to designate leadership, both at a government level to drive national efforts around AT and employment, and also at an employer level to oversee the implementation of inclusive practices and workplace adjustments. We need to build collaborations across all of these stakeholders that we've mentioned, but also across different employment sectors to strengthen global supply chains and address market barriers, whilst also raising awareness to improve of the potential of AT to improve employment outcomes and disseminating information on the range of AT available to meet diverse needs in different employment contexts, so both within the informal and the formal employment sectors. And lastly, to conduct research to provide this evidence base. Thank you. I will now pass over and I would like to introduce David from People's Action for Inclusive Development in Cambodia, who's going to speak about their experience of co-producing assisted products in rural farming communities. He will be followed by Siddha from NeoMotion, who will share their case study on how AT has created more opportunities to work for people with physical disabilities in India.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever we are. I'm David from People's Action for Inclusive Development based in Cambodia. I'm going to talk a little bit about the AgriLab process. Assistive technology can include tools and equipment that are adapted to enable a person to perform specific tasks, as the brief mentions. With AgriLab, we aim to be part of the AT ecosystem for those engaged in agricultural value chains. So I'll talk about the co-design of assistive technologies with farmers with disabilities in rural settings. Thank you. Next slide. I will describe some of the slides as well. Next slide, please. So the reality, I think we all know, agriculture is central to poverty reduction in most of the countries we work in. Most rural farmers rely on manual labor, basic tools. Farmers with disabilities face multiple barriers due to physical accessibility, lack of assistive devices, lack of engagement in systems such as agricultural cooperatives. Now, such limited access to AT leads to lower productivity, lack of access to market, higher physical strain, often injury, and reduced economic opportunities. Rural women with disabilities and elderly farmers experience triple marginalization due to the poverty, disability, and gender or age. Next slide, please. So we believe in AgriLab. I'll explain about that in a second, but we believe that assistive devices are not just tools, but they are gateways to productivity, gateways to inclusion, gateways to sustainability. This ensures access to affordable, durable, and culturally and context-appropriate assistive technology, which can transform livelihoods and reduce poverty cycles. AgriLab is an approach to create a space for participatory innovation, where farmers with disability co-design accessible agricultural tools and equipment and processes with technical experts to create AT solutions. Next slide, please. The origins of AgriLab were very simple. It came from really listening to farmers with disabilities, really listening to what they wanted and their experience, their lived experience. It came from Cambodia, where we had a high amount of farmers living in landmine affected areas. So it was really talking to the farmers with disabilities about things that they needed to develop. We developed this as PAFID. We were formerly Light for the World Cambodia and tested it in Cambodia and in Indonesia. And the approach has been rolled out in Malawi, Mozambique, Burkina Faso under the SPARK program with ILO and
Sorry, David, you're muted.
To be okay. Okay, now I'm back. We embed this as part of a wider program of inclusive agriculture, leveraging local resources and technology. We use a human-centered design approach. It's basically a series of 3 workspaces or workshops. I'll go through those now. Next slide, please. The first workshop is basically around creative capacity building, encourages trust, confidence, teamwork, really opens up people thinking about design and innovation. And in that same workshop, we have a pre-design stage, which is really understanding concepts, the context, and supporting participants to identify the challenges. Thank you. Next slide. The next slide shows a picture of a farmer in Mozambique with a banana build, which shows how farmers are just using paper to make a platform to support as many bananas as possible. It was kind of a game, kind of a competition, but it really opened up people's thinking about how to design. Thank you. Next slide. Workshop 2 is around prototyping. So it's a really exciting stage where we go from ideas to making models to actually starting to build the prototypes of the solutions themselves. Next slide. And then finally, we get to the post-design and refinement stage where the prototypes are really tested in real life. And then we get time to modify. Thank you. Next slide. I'm going to show some examples now of some of the devices. I know time's against me a little bit, but there's 9 small examples here from Cambodia. I won't go through them all, but they range from power assisted transport to cassava harvesting carts to chicken coop alterations and modifications. Next slide, please. The key lesson there, small innovations have a really big impact. This particular one I really liked. It's an older lady farmer, an older woman farmer who has she's a wheelchair user, and this innovation was a cart that clips onto the wheelchair, and she can carry water. And it was actually really transformative because she was paying people for water before to collect water, and she was also having to wait sometimes for days to get water. Now this gives her complete independence and confidence. Thank you. Next slide. This is a small video. It's a rural Cambodian setting, quite dry land, and there's a woman with mobility impairment, lower limb mobility impairment, who her and her community to help her dig, and the video is showing her dig very, very successfully. Thank you. Next slide, please. This is another picture. It's again a rural setting in Malawi, this one, and it shows some transportation carts that have been adapted for wheelchair, what is more like tricycle users actually. So this was in Malawi. That's what the photo shows. Next one. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is an adapted, well, one before. Thank you very much. Okay, this is from Burkina Faso, where we had an adapted rotavator, which was a ploughing, weeding, and drilling seed tool. Again, adapted for mobility impaired. Thank you very much. Next one. There's another example here from Burkina Faso, which is a rope spacer for planting or for sowing seeds, which was adapted for visually impaired in Burkina. And this is basically ropes with some plastic markers, and when people can feel the plastic markers, they know that's where they can plant the seeds. It was all done in co-creation with the farmers themselves. Next one, please. The final example, there's plenty, but the final example, this one I thought was interesting to show because it overlaps with the impact of climate change as well. This was from an area that's prone to flooding. So the issue was accessible grain storage that was stored, so the grain could be stored elevated above ground, but then the issue about how to access that above ground space for people, wheelchair users came up. So this was an adapted grain storage innovation from Mozambique. Thank you. Last slide, I believe. I'm going to hand over to McDonald, who is a visually impaired farmer in Malawi. He's just going to talk about something that he designed. He's standing in a field in rural Malawi, holding a tool that him and his group made. It was their own innovation.
Kuthandizidwa ndi azathu a Pride. Anthu aulumali tinali otsalidwa kwambiri mbuyo.
He says they felt that he was being left behind in development, especially farming, because they didn't have equipment and tools to use in agriculture. They didn't have the AT. AgriLab, they developed some tools which could help them participate, and that was a right. It was a right for them to participate in agriculture. It's a very simple tool. It's a water bottle that floats, and this is for irrigation schemes. So once you put the tool at the level of the area that you're irrigating, once the water comes up, the bottle floats up, and if you're visually impaired or blind, you know exactly that's the point that you need. That's enough. So that was the last word left with McDonald. So they did some terrific things. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you as well. Bye-bye.
We'll now hand over to Siddharth, who will present Neo Motion from India.
Just checking, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Perfect. Is anybody hungry here? I'm sure it might be either lunch or dinner or probably breakfast time at whichever country you're from. But whenever you feel hungry, I'm sure some of you or most of you would have used either of these applications like Grab, Uber Eats, Volt, or Amazon, any of these apps to order food or a meal for yourself. This is what we have used to empower some of the lives here in India. One such case study is of Kuldeep. He comes from a small town in India called Rewari. Being a person with spinal cord injury and only survived by his mother, he was the sole breadwinner for his house. But due to lack of employment opportunities, he was malnourished, not access to a lot of income, and hence not access to a lot of food. He started working as a Zomato food delivery partner, just like Uber Eats and Grab. There is Zomato, which is an app in India. So he started working as a food delivery partner, and recently he was even awarded for doing the maximum number of orders in a day by a person on a wheelchair in Delhi. We also have Lakshmi from Pondicherry. She has 2 children and a husband in Pondicherry. While she was dependent on her husband, who sometimes used to drink, she was always dependent on him. But now, despite being polio affected, she works as a food delivery partner and earns for herself and her family. This is what led to Livelihood on Wheels, and my name is Siddharth Daga, a co-founder and design engineer from NeoMotion. We design and manufacture mobility products for persons with locomotor disability, and Livelihood on Wheels is a project to provide dignified and scalable employment through gig economy platforms. The problem that we initially set out to solve is that of mobility. Most of the wheelchairs that are used today are one size fits all concept. They are body damaging. They are inefficient to use as a mobility device. And as a result, most of the wheelchair users are just trapped at home, unemployed, unable to go outside independently. If somebody does get a job in a city, the problem is, how do I get to work? Public transport is mostly inaccessible, and private transports like tuk-tuks, cabs, taxis are extremely expensive to be used on a day-to-day basis. So to solve this problem, we created our solution. It's basically a combination of a customized manual wheelchair with a scooter attachment. In the video, you can see a wheelchair user with the NeoBolt scooter attachment, the wheelchair has converted into an outdoor mobility scooter. You can see that the user is traveling in the metro in a city, traveling certain distance to reach an office, to reach the place of work. And once the person reaches the building, he detaches the Neo Bolt and then uses the wheelchair to enter the building. So you can see how he's comfortably outside on his wheelchair, inside on his wheelchair now, meeting his colleague and his friends inside a mall. Now, this led to Livelihood on Wheels, where we are trying to work with food delivery apps like Grab, Uber Eats, Zomato, and Amazon, so that people get livelihood jobs as delivery partners. So you can see in this video how there are men and women on wheelchairs using the NeoBolt and delivering delicious food that been ordered by the customers, riding on the roads in the cities, and in a very dignified and in a very happy manner, delivering their orders, delivering smiles to their customers. How did we implement this in India? We got support of funding through CSR through company CSRs, through grants, and through financing. We were able to identify the candidates who needed support with the help of NGOs, with the help of OPDs in India. And at the end, definitely we worked with employers such as Zomato, Amazon, Grab, so that, and then obviously NeoMotion came in with the mobility support. So with the help of these 4 partners, we were able to implement this in India. We piloted this in 2022. This is in fact a picture of me using the NeoMotion wheelchair and doing deliveries during the second COVID lockdown in India. I delivered 12 orders that day, and I identified certain aspects that if we could work on, it will become much more easier for wheelchair users to do this. Number one was the inclusivity features on the app. Today, Zomato has a notification in the app to the customer saying that there is a specially able partner who is going to deliver their order, and please provide a lending hand while collecting your order. It can just be simply going downstairs and collecting the order by hand. It can be, being patient with the delivery partner, things like that. Zomato also helps us with tracking and monitoring systems so that we are able to track the income levels, the number of hours, the number of orders that they have delivered, so that we know where we are today and we are able to track the performance of every individual and then see if they are facing any challenges. What are the results? Today we have 600 users in India who are spinal cord injured, polio affected, or even amputees who are having dignified livelihood as delivery partners in India. They are earning close to $50 to $300 every month. And more importantly, they are able to work whenever they want, according to their time availability and according to their health. This gives them a dignified form of livelihood, the kind of independence, not only physically, but also financially as well. All in all, today, in the last 3 years, we have generated $700,000 of income for all these 600 delivery partners in total earnings, where they are able to earn $250 to $300 per month. I would just take another 30 to 40 seconds. We have Praveen Shinde on the webinar today. He's a delivery partner who works in Mumbai. Praveen, if you can just unmute yourself and just share your experience for some time. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello,
we can hear you, Praveen.
Are you audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Very, very good afternoon. Have a good day. Have a great day, everyone. And I'm from India in Mumbai. My name is Praveen. I am a 90% polio affected in my both legs and hands. And my first job, I am selling cup of tea in a Sakinaka signal for in a night time. But with new motion, I'm starting my new life journey in a Zomato delivery part. I'm a first candidate in a Mumbai area. I'm completed more than 5,000 delivery till now. I'm so happy because of that. Before I'm starting my life with promotion, I am totally depend in with my parents, with my friends, with society. But as of now, I feel I independent because I'm traveling anywhere with my wheelchair. I think I am on screen with wheelchair. Are you see, sir? Siddharth, sir?
No, I'll just now we can, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm using this wheelchair. So I'm independent. I'm as of now. I'm working in the international airport terminal 2 in a cafe as a manager. So I'm interact with international passengers in the terminal 2 arrival. So as
Perfect,
of
Praveen.
now, I mean, and thank you so much, New Motion and Siddharth sir, giving the most beneficial opportunity to me. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
and
Praveen.
have a great
Thank
day,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you all. And thank you for this opportunity. And yeah, back to you, Melissa. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you. Probably I'll take it from here. So thank you very much, Siddharth, and also David for presenting your powerful work happening across the globe, which does feature in this particular policy brief on AT and employment. And thank you also, Praveen, for presenting your powerful story and how AT has contributed, or assistive technology has contributed in your journey so far, especially in the employment. In your employment. So thank you for sharing those stories. Thank you, Melissa, for presenting the policy brief. And thank you. I think one message which resonates with me very strongly is the point which you mentioned that and emphasize that employer and employee alone can't strengthen access to assistive technology in the employment sector. We need the whole ecosystem. We need the leadership. We need the policy. We need the financing. We need the workforce management strategies, among many others. So we need the whole ecosystem to ensure and strengthen access to assistive technology in the employment sector. So thank you very much. That was very insightful. Now we'll move to a panel which will further help us to understand the findings of the policy brief. The panel includes an AT user, includes a government perspective on AT and employment, as well as an employer and employee perspective on assistive technology and employment. So with that, I have the pleasure of inviting Marianne Imomeri from United Disabled Persons of Kenya. Welcome, Marianne. I also invite Adi Bokola, Adi Baya from the National Commission of Persons with Disabilities in Nigeria, Amol Joshi, responsible for disability inclusion at Accenture Technology Centers in India, as well as Vivian Omor Bey, who is a manager at Mobile Telecommunication Corporation in Nigeria, MTC in Nigeria. My first question is to you, Marianne. Marianne, as a disability right activist, and with your own first-hand experience on how assistive technology contributed in your own education and employment, can you share your journey with the audience here today? What challenges did you face, having lost your voice due to your serious illness, and what role assistive technology had in helping you access to employment? Over to you, Marianne.
First, I appreciate the previous speakers and outstanding innovators for setting the pace for this panel. I lost my speech ability at 2 years old just as I was learning to talk. From then, access education became a huge challenge. Imagine trying to light a fire with wet wood. That's how challenging it was. It took some years and much push from my parents for me to be admitted to mainstream school. The doctor who assessed me strongly suggested that my learning capabilities were not affected and that I was not to be taken to a special school. The administration of the school I went to insisted and took me to a segregated class within the mainstream school. The first week I was there, I was convinced that it was not the definition of a school. We kept learning some things over and over. The teacher sounded like a broken record. And the special schools are what we are advocating against. We need inclusive schools that adapt to the different learner needs, and with artificial intelligence, AI, and assistive technology, this can be achieved. For the 6 or so years I was in that school, the learners in the segregated unit never moved from that class. Others kept joining while others dropped out. There was zero progress. After that 1 week, boredom made me rebellious. When the teacher stood to teach the predictable lesson, I would take a drum that we used to play with. Even the class setup showed that there was no intentionality. It was a classroom, a store, and a playground all under one tiny, congested, dilapidated roof. I would start making drum beats and some of the other kids would join in and sing, disrupting the whole class. One could tell that even our sweet teacher could relate with our boredom. At first, she did nothing but make the sessions a play session instead. But my rebellion grew with new tactics every day. I used to get out and run to the other classes and refuse to go back. One of the class teachers in the other class noticed that I was actually smart and decided to give me a chance, and that is how I got myself in the mainstream class. It was similarly tough for me to join high school and campus, and I wasted almost 10 years being away from school for one reason or another. When I finally got out, I got a smartphone which enabled me to do a lot of things. First, I joined WhatsApp groups for persons with disabilities, which enabled me access to opportunities like the IT Bridge Academy, which is an inclusive academy by the United Disabled Persons of Kenya (UDPK), Sightsavers, and other partners. Through my phone, I was also able to access courses on Coursera and learn at my own pace without the barriers I had faced accessing physical schools. I gained more skills and my current employer noticed me, and I began working at UDPK. Not everyone was conversant with sign language at the workplace, and one of my colleagues is visually impaired, and at first it was challenging communicating with her, particularly since she could not see what I wrote. That is when I explored and came across my text-to-speech app. I use it at the workplace, when networking, and even regional and international panels like this one, and I do so independently. I am also a startup founder of an assistive technology known as SKIO. We are building a tool that seeks to enhance the safety and independence of the deaf. Soon, we will also be creating employment through it, while serving the deaf community. This has been made possible through initiatives like AI to Amplify by Goethe Institute, Innovate Now, and AT4D, which have supported different assistive technologies startups through mentorship. I share my lived experiences a lot on LinkedIn. Please follow me. I am known as Mariana Momeri. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mariana, for sharing your experience with all of us, especially on the role of digital technology in the employment sector, and the role which assistive technology has played in your life. So thank you very much, Mariana, for sharing those powerful experience of yours. I now move towards a government perspective on assistive technology and employment. And my next question is to Adi Bokola from Nigeria, who heads the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. Adi Bokola, this was also mentioned earlier on by Melissa. Nigeria has introduced an Access to Work scheme, which provides grants for assistive products in the workplace. And this demonstrates a strong commitment of the Nigerian government on inclusive employment practices. Can you tell us more about the process that led to this groundbreaking scheme? And how are you ensuring that this state-funded solution continues and is sustainable? Over to you, Adi Bokola. Dr. Adi Bokola, if you are still there. Yes, I think we can see you now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, very well, very well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I said that I am a technical advisor to the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities here in Nigeria. The Access to Work scheme is a product of collaborative efforts between the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities and Sight Savers Nigeria. Sight Savers has been doing a lot of work in promoting employment of persons with disabilities, helping persons with disabilities to build skills towards gaining formal employment. Of course, studies were carried out here in Nigeria, labor market assessments and so many other studies were carried out. And we found that one of the reasons why people with disabilities in Nigeria are not getting formal employment is because there are no additional costs of assistive technologies and devices. And so based on the feedback we got from these researches, we also observed that there is no, apart from the fact that we have a National Disability Act, which provides that persons with disabilities be allocated 5% quota of the workforce of every public organizations. The private sector were not provided for. There was no support for the private sector to employ persons with disabilities. And so we saw also that the costs, employers were really worried about the cost of assistive technologies. And so many people with disabilities were not getting jobs. So we worked with Sight Savers to develop this assistive technology access to work framework for Nigeria. It was launched in January this year, and just a few weeks ago, the committee, the governance structure to drive the access to work scheme was set up. As we speak, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities has earmarked some resources to ensure the implementation of the scheme in its 2024 and 2025 budgets, which are going to be concurrently implemented this year. So we're at the stage of putting the structures in place to ensure transparency and effectiveness in the process. We will be providing assistive technology to persons with disabilities who apply to jobs and have been offered, requested to come for interviews, and then of course, for those who are already employed or who just gained employment, we will be doing providing them with the necessary assistive devices. We will also be working with the employers technically to provide technical support for them in terms of providing assessments of the workplace and training their staff on how to ensure an accessible workplace environment. The process for application is being designed at the moment, and very soon we hope that Nigerians with disabilities will gain benefit from this. The government intends to sustain this in its annual budget, that is the commission. We intend to sustain this in its annual budget, but we are not limiting it to that. We are also engaging with large-scale employers in Nigeria or philanthropists who might also be able to contribute to the fund, because we are setting up a fund so that can draw additional funding from the private sector to support this scheme. So it's not just going to be the budget from the federal government alone. It's also going to include funds, donations from international donors, the private sector, and philanthropists. And we're also going to ensure that beyond the federal level, beyond the national level, the subnational governments and the local governments also buy into this. So there are plans. The committee have drawn up its action plan for the rollout of the scheme, which also includes engaging with state and local governments who are also employers of labor and who can also support their employees and ensure that persons with disabilities are not denied gainful employment because of lack of access to assistive devices. We think that this is also going to influence positively on the AT environment. We have a lot of AT practitioners in Nigeria. Most of our devices are imported, and so they are quite expensive. And so we as the government, we are also working to remove all import duties on assistive technology, so it comes in cheaper, while government will subsidize as much as possible. So this is what we have in Nigeria at the moment. It's evolving, and we believe it creates a great future for gainful employment for persons with disabilities in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Adibukola. And I think that's such a powerful example, and an example, I think, and I wish and I hope more countries can learn from that and start initiating and implementing in different countries. So thank you very much for sharing that. Now let's move to an employee perspective. And with this, let me invite Vivian Umrogbe, who's also from Nigeria and represents the MTC, mobile telecom communication company in corporation in Nigeria. Vivian, if you can help the audience to understand how your company is currently approaching inclusion of persons with disabilities in the workforce. What processes are in place to facilitate access to assistive technologies for employees who need them? Over to you, Vivian.
Hello, everyone, and I'm pleased to be here. And thanks to all the speakers that have spoken. Satish, my name is Vivian Omorogbe. I noticed you struggled a little bit to call my name. So my name is Vivian Omorogbe, and I work with MTN Nigeria, Mobile Telecommunications Network in Nigeria. All right. As a brand, over the years, we've always supported persons with disabilities, and we've done that through the corporate social responsibility arm of our business. However, we've also done a whole lot in terms of creating accessibility for our people. A few accessibility in terms of our facility and, our processes within the organization. But then we needed to be a lot more disability confident. And that was when we partnered with Site Savers. And this was as far back as 2021. And they helped us to conduct a disability inclusion audit. That audit opened our eyes to a whole lot of stuff that we could actually do for persons with disabilities internally. And then it also, in furtherance, helped us to birth a plan that we were able to put in place to support persons with disabilities. We called it Beyond Barriers. Now, this plan cuts across employees, it cuts across our customers, it cuts across the communities that we support, as well as stakeholders. Now, what are some of the things that we had to do? First, strategically, we signed up with National Business Disability Network, ALICE. It helps us keep to the commitment of creating accessible workplace for our people. And then it positions us to influence the regulations on persons with disabilities. I heard Adebukola speak not too long ago. MTN Nigeria contributed to that accessible workplace project that was launched by the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. And then it provides an environment whereby we can take a lot of learnings and do some healthy benchmarks with the things that we want to do for our people. That also helps us to put in place policies internally. So we have a DEI policy that also helps to inform the things we do for persons with disabilities. Now, this policy dovetails into other policies in the organization. The one that speaks to health policy, recruitment policy, sourcing policy, to ensure that everything that we are doing in the business, it's looked upon from the angle of inclusion, not just for people who are able, but also for persons with disabilities. So just to mention a few of the things that we've done in the area of creating access for our people. One of it is ensuring that there are rails, ramps installed across the various locations where we have our businesses in Nigeria. Our business is widespread. So if anyone with disability have to access any of our premises, the person should not struggle in any way. So there are ramps, there are rails, and then there are signages on the wall that shows the fact that we support and enable persons with disabilities. We also conducted trainings internally for our people to create the needed awareness on disability. And then there are other ongoing trainings around unconscious bias to drive the needed awareness that doesn't speak just to disability inclusion, but in whole, all our DEI agenda that we are driving in the business. So because we've been able to improve our disability confidence, we have a good number of our employees, indicating openly that I am someone with disability because they know that they can get the needed support from the organization. Before now, a lot of them, especially for the persons with disabilities that are not seen, most of the visible ones, if it is physically related, you can actually tell that this person is with a disability. But there are certain disabilities that are not visible. And such ones, they hardly come out in the open to say that I am someone with disability. But because of some of these interventions that we've put in place, we have some of them come forward openly to say, I'm someone with disability, because they know they will get the required support from the organization. We've also put in place accessible wheelchairs across the locations where we have our business to support persons with disability. So if we have someone with disability visit any of our locations and finds it difficult to move from one point to another with their walking stick and all that, the person can be wheeled with the wheelchairs that has been provisioned across the various locations where we have our operation. We've also installed hearing loops at our shops and the respective locations where we have our businesses as well. And this is to enable people who are hard at hearing to be able to communicate, efficiently without any struggles. We've also ensured that our communications are a lot more inclusive than they used to be. Before now, we used to do a lot of text. Now, even the CEO sends out his communications in videos, and it's, captioned, in terms of what he's saying, so that if you're deaf, if you're blind, whatever disability it is, the person will be able to receive that message. So we're making the best of the opportunities to ensure we are as inclusive as possible. And even at the recruitment level, we give, reasonable accommodation. So ahead of you coming for your test, the questionnaire allows you to indicate if you're someone with disability and what reasonable accommodation would you require for you to go through that recruitment process. And part of the reason why the interviews for persons with disabilities most times are done virtually, like how we're having this session, as opposed to insisting that the individual comes physically to the recruitment venue.
Right.
So really, I could go on and on and on and on. And of late, through the IT Bridge Academy that we participated in collaboration with Site Savers, we were able to onboard 4 of the interns in our midst to give them the needed learnings to be employable, right? And in the process, we employed someone on a wheelchair. Before now, we've had people using clutches, and they can easily access our premises without any challenge. The person with wheelchair can equally access. However, we realize that the bus provision does not enable her to access the transportation from her home to the office and then back home. So we had to do provide some form of an allowance for her to conveniently book a taxi that takes her from her home to the office. And then secondly, of late, through the MTN Foundation and some other colleagues alike within the organization, we were able to get an electronic wheelchair for her. Her initial wheelchair was manual. So she depends on someone wheeling her from one point to another. So right now, she can comfortably move by herself from one point to another. And that shows the level of interest we pay in ensuring that persons with disabilities are included and they are enabled in every way that they should be enabled with the various forms of assistive technology that is in place. So I'll stop at this point because I could go on and on and on,
I can see that, Vivian, and thank you very much for sharing that, and thank you for sharing all this work happening in Nigeria. I can hear you. Yeah, thank you very much, Vivian, for that. Thank you. This was very, very insightful with all those practical recommendations. Thank you. I now move to Amol Joshi from Accenture Technology Centers in India. Amol, if you can briefly help the audience to understand what are some of the biggest challenges or misconceptions companies face when it comes to investing on assistive technology for employees.
So thank you very much, Satish, and I'm feeling really privileged to be part of this truly international platform. And really thank you, organizers, to have me here. Accenture has done so much of work in the space of disability inclusion over the years. And doing and telling this briefly, it's a challenge in itself, but I'll try. I spent 22 years in this firm, and I can see that the firm is governed by some core values. And this core values, everything is centered around people. I say people, it's everyone, correct? And it's important for Accenture to ensure that we attract the talent, we hire them, and we develop this talent from very diverse backgrounds, different ethnicity, perspectives, different living experiences, correct? Because this is the way only we can create those teams who can thrive and innovate and create value for our clients. Now, as you were talking about the overall ecosystem, you mentioned around ecosystem. As an Accenture, over the last years, we have built several platforms. We have built several, I would say, technology innovations, correct? But unless and until we, as an employer, build that ecosystem, it's going to be challenging for anyone who comes in, for our clients, for our people who work as a team. So, first of all, as a firm, what we have done is we have invested our time and talent and money in ensuring that it is top down, correct? So creating ecosystem, it means that there is a top down approach wherein everyone in the firm at a leadership level thinks similarly. Once we get into that, there are fundamental pillars, correct, which ensures that everyone in the system has a trust, correct, and transparency. So there is something called as self-identification. So what we have done is we have created a mechanism where people with various kind of disabilities or any diversities can come in and goes in the system and identify themselves with a lot of trust in the system. And for now, there are more than 15,000 people who have done self-identification of their disabilities, which helps us in many ways. Third thing is creating processes which are equitable. Unless and until we kind of talk about what, but unless and we do this how part of it, it becomes very difficult for anyone to come in. So we as an Accenture, as an equal employer, equal opportunity employer, every job that we create has been created that anyone, including person with disabilities, can perform that duty. And to do so, we provide them reasonable accommodation. Now, within Accenture, we have almost 45 plus activation centers, correct? Wherein any individual can go, they can see those assistive technologies, they can handle them, correct? They can touch, feel, test it, and then take those assistive technologies. So each of these accessibility centers has software, hardware, furniture, and mobility technologies available for anyone. It's not only for people with disabilities, but anyone, as I suppose I'm a manager who want to provide some facilities or technologies to my team. I can go and see myself, touch them. I can take my clients to these places. But when you say ecosystem, it's the employer, it's the individual, and for us, the client, because sometimes the client ecosystems are extremely important for us, so that each of us understands and provide that facility to the individual to perform to their abilities. So as I said, we have almost 45 such accessibility centers across the globe. We have 3 in India. We're adding a lot more because this is really helping us to provide this kind of assistive technology experience to our individuals as well as to our clients. From a pillars perspective, the fourth pillar, most important, is creating the inclusive culture, correct? So when we go around and talk around disability, we talk around assistive technology, we see, and we have talked, many of you have talked about people not being aware of it. There are certain biases in the system. So we have done a significant effort, and as a consistent effort goes on sensitization and enablement to everyone. While doing so, we go and celebrate the key moments. We celebrate the IDPWD, the GAD. Plus, we also give an opportunity and something called as celebrating abilities to our individuals who, along with their families, come and talk about their journeys, their personal journeys, how they have came from where they were, got into Accenture, what kind of support they have got with the assistive technologies, how they're able to perform their duties, and how that changed their life and as well as the life of their families.
Right.
And then the last pillar, I'd say is again a very important one, is collaborate with our clients and also with communities.
Right.
When I say with clients, there is something called as accessibility as a service, because many of the clients really come to Accenture with our maturity in the accessibility and the whole disability inclusion area around how to do it. correct? So we provide this as a service.
Right.
And an overall aspect here is thinking accessibility first as a mindset. I think this is very important. It's a mindset, correct? You need to think whatever you do, you think, what am I doing? Is it universally accessible to everyone, correct? And once you do that, it automatically enables the disability as part of it. So this inclusion as a design principle is a key. And with this, I'll take a pause to see if I covered your question, Satish. But I think this is very important. As a
Right.
principle, we have to do it, and universally it should be accessible. So the disability gets accessibility automatically. Because just I'll give an example, correct? If you, and we talked about barriers. Everything you provide a fantastic wheelchair, individual comes and sees that there is no ramp on that building. Now
Right.
that individual is not disabled. Actually, the building is disabled, correct? So we have to have that mindset. And I really like, we were talking so passionately about work, and I can also go on and on,
Right.
possibly for next 1 hour, but the interest of time, I'll hand it back to you, Satish.
Thank you very much, Amol, and thank you. Thank you for emphasizing the importance of leadership, governance, trust, culture, and inclusion by design as a cross-cutting theme, which I think is very important to strengthen access to assistive technology in the employment sector. Thank you, all the panelists. In the interest of time, we will move forward. I see that many of the questions has been addressed and answered in the chat, and whichever questions are not been able to we have not been able to address, we'll ensure that we reach out to you and respond to your questions and queries. So thank you everyone for and my sincere apologies for overshooting with the time. But I want to take a moment to thank all of you and all the panelists who joined today, as well as all the speakers for this exciting discussion and work, and hopefully this can further scale up assistive technology in the employment sectors, so that not only the employers and the employees benefit, but overall system benefits out of this. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of the first policy briefs which we have launched at ATscale. The English report is online. The webinar recording will also be publicly available at the ATscale website. It will be also disseminated via social media channels. We hope to meet you again in the next webinar and look forward to continuing this conversation on how to increase access to assistive technology in countries to catalyze employment. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day or night ahead, depending from wherever you are joining in. Thank you very much, everybody.